Thank you, Lindsay Morris, for coming. Lindsay is the education coordinator for OurFamilyWizard, which is a platform that helps parents communicate effectively and co-parent together. Tell me a little bit about yourself, not from your work bio, just who is Lindsay Morris?
Well, thank you for having me here, Isaac. I'm very excited to talk about OurFamilyWizard today. So something that is not on my work bio is probably why I came into this field. I think that everyone, comes into the world of family mediation and conflict resolution for different reasons. I've always been very fascinated by family dynamics. I think that the unique thing about the family system is it's the one place where you can't say, if I have a disagreement or if I get into a big fight with my parent or my child or my sibling, okay, I'm done. I won't talk to them again. You're always stuck with your family in some sense. So it really is the best area that you could possibly put the work in, because you're always going to be connected to your family in some way. So learning how to work through disputes, showing that a divorce or a separation does not have to be a defining traumatic moment, and that it can actually show kids, what communication looks like in a conflict and how to, successfully work through issues together and still remain a strong, family united front. So I think that it's been very rewarding for me to be in this space, to see the type of impact, helping families, improving communication and, organizing family life has on co-parents and ultimately, children.
Wow. It is a very interesting transition from being married to being divorced. But I see 100% what you're saying is like, it's surprising even how people would fight for a marriage, and then on the opposite end, well, if we're getting divorced, we're going to go kill each other. But it really is a relationship that has to work to some extent, and family court or, the court system, and there really is no system that could actually work other than working it out together, really, for it to really work. You could have, obviously there is a place for court, there's a place for other dispute resolution methods, but really to be able to communicate and effectively have these conversations, as well as, like you're saying, is what you're showing your children. You're showing them, how do you work through disagreements? And divorce is where you don't have that one unit anymore, where in that one unit you have to agree. In divorce, you don't have to agree.
Right.
And then the question is, okay, so we disagree, but how do we coexist?
Exactly.
How do we continue living together?
Exactly.
So you were going to say something.
And I do think that the attitudes towards co-parenting have started to shift, and I'm really enjoying seeing that shift. I think that, it used to always be associated with a very negative connotation, divorce is going to mess up a kid's life. And I think we're moving away from that now, because it's, how does the divorce look like? How did the conflict prior to the divorce look like when both parents were living in the house together, but let's say it was very high conflict, and showing kids, like we were saying, that every family has their stuff. So it's how do we make the most of what we're dealt with? How do we move forward? How do we show that, conflicts arise and disagreements come up, and we may not be on the same page about everything, but we're going to put our kids first. We're going to put the family unit first and work through it. And that really is, to tie it back to our Family Wizard, we are mission-based, helping families living separately thrive. That is why I joined our Family Wizard.
Tell me a little bit about our Family Wizard, how you think about it in terms of the first time that we met, right? I had a lot of hesitation because sorry if I gave you too much of it. My hesitation was because my clients are generally very peaceful. They're working together. They're figuring out their life together. And the idea of documenting every text, that everything could be read by the professional, which I don't sign up as a professional on these accounts. My clients are just the ones that are using Our Family Wizard are just communicating one to the other. And they're using other parts of Our Family Wizard, which we'll get to, which are like other great features that they have. That hesitation that I had, I want to reiterate it because I think that when people are considering this service, this is, I think for at least my clients that are on the edge have to think about it, right? So you could have a regular communication, and then you have a communication where, okay, we're going to take this to court with us type of thinking, right? So how do you think about it?
Well, I appreciate you coming around in some respects. And I did completely understand your concerns when we had that first phone call because, you know, there are different ways to use Our Family Wizard. So there are those high conflict families where using Our Family Wizard is the only option they have. That is how they have to communicate. They need those, you know, support, that protection, safety concerns. And then we also, a large part of our clients, you know, they just want to be more organized. So I always say, you know, who is our ideal client? Someone that wants to improve co-parenting communication, or someone that wants to be more organized, because living in two separate homes, you know, with kids, there's a lot that goes into it. So anyone that could benefit from having one place where anything family related, it's in a unified, you know, storage space, essentially, I think that can be really helpful. It's almost like having, you know, an archive folder on your email. So it's like all my communication about the most important thing in the world, which is, you know, my children and my family, is going to be in one place. And I don't need to look for it. So I don't need to look for the receipts, and I don't need to look for the pickup and the drop-offs. So, you know, especially for those mediation clients, not only is it an organizational tool, but it really does, our intention is reducing litigation, reducing conflict. And what I see is that sometimes Our Family Wizard helps families that maybe there's one thing that's holding them back from, you know, the forward movement and the mediation, whether that's the custody schedule or, you know, pick up and drop offs, or someone's not, you know, making a phone call when they're with one parent. And Our Family Wizard helps them get over that hump to go into, you know, to move forward and to move on from the divorce and be able to focus on, you know, what's really important. So I think, you know, to answer your question and some of your hesitations that you had, which are totally valid, it's for all types of parents, really.
Right. So let me add to what you're saying, meaning other than just being an archive for all the messages, there's also the other services which it has. It has a calendar. Yeah. So you have a calendar of the time and the schedule and everything on it, which you would map out the calendar. You have payments through there. So if someone sees a therapist, they're getting braces, let's say, right? And they have a split in there, you could just request the payment through Our Family Wizard. You have, I think you told me this example was you're going bowling and you want to know the shoe size of the kid. You don't have to call your ex. You could just look in the app and you'll see the shoe size. You have, which I guess the more, the stuff that have the wrong connotation to me is, let's say, tracking pickup and drop off, which could be a feature that's used, could be a feature that's not used. And something that's interesting about Our Family Wizard is that you have to turn on all the things that you do on everything that you do allow, like phone calls. If you do want phone calls, you don't want phone calls. You want it recorded, you don't want it recorded. And now you have being transcribed as well, right?
Absolutely.
So that was actually, the transcribing was one of the ones that flipped me, because it was an opportunity for a parent that needed their phone calls on speaker for safety reasons to be able to switch to being transcribed and give them the privacy in the conversation. And that the child, at least, as much as the parents knew that they needed safety precautions, but the child doesn't need to know, right? So now, obviously, if a child needs to know about safety precautions, they need to know. But if you don't per se want the child to know about it, and that's a parent decision, then you could just have your calls transcribed assuming that there's no immediate danger, that it's just something that you wanted to track based on whether it's the therapy or the program that the child's in.
Exactly. No, that is their, it really is whatever you make of it, because we know every family situation is unique, is different. So, for families that want to turn on the, pick up and drop offs, and maybe someone's having an issue with tardiness, and that would be helpful to, you can only tag your location when you're within 500 feet. And that can just act as, a sense of clarity between, if a parent says they're at the parking lot, they can only check in when they're at the parking lot. But if maybe a parent that's too much for them and they don't want that, then they don't turn their consent on for location, sharing, and they won't be shared. But they can use the other part of our journal feature, which is, sharing positive memories with the child between co-parents, birthday parties, field trips, vacations. So it really is, it's not one size fits all.
Right. And for parents that don't want necessarily while their spouse is vacationing, while their ex-spouse is vacationing, to get a million pictures, they get to just upload it and they can look when they would like.
Exactly.
What is the most popular features that people are using OurFamilyWizard for?
I mean, I think that our calls feature, that's our latest feature. So that's getting a lot of traction. People are excited about that, not just the transcriptions, but also to, facilitate that virtual parenting time, which is essentially communication, between parent and child when they're not physically together. And I think that can be very useful for, any type of family situation, because maintaining that connection is so important. And just having, making sure that those calls are happening. And let's say they're, every Tuesday, the, mom and child are supposed to check in with each other. And mom really looks forward to those phone calls, but life happens and things get busy. And maybe the phone call, isn't happening. Well, then OurFamilyWizard can see, did mom try and call and the call wasn't picked up? So it's really record keeping. So I think, to answer your question, calls and also calendar. So many people that are using OurFamilyWizard. I mean, I have people that come up to me, they're in happy marriages, and they ask if there's a way for them to get on the calendar feature, because who doesn't need, a calendar? It's color coded. It organizes everything. You upload the schedules, the kids' activities. A lot of parents print it out. And especially if there's a young child, it can be nice for them to see, oh, it's actually not that long until I see mom again or dad again. And oh, this, I have this vacation coming up or this field trip. So it's a nice way to, include the children in the schedule, which we know can be, a difficult transition.
Right. There's so many features towards our, OurFamilyWizard. And I know that the support is great from, for sure, the professional support that you offer for professionals, and then the support even for parents, where they could reach out 24/7 to OurFamilyWizard to help them out and guide them through the process. I wish that there was more detailed videos of explaining how to use each feature.
We are working on that because we have a lot of requests for that. We do have a YouTube video up that can walk parents, kind of a quick tutorial, but we are working on getting an updated video out. And also, though, if you're working with clients that are considering OurFamilyWizard, or maybe they just signed up and they want a tool explained, or they're not sure how to use something, our customer support team, they're in 7 days a week, and you can call and you'll actually get a human being on the phone, which is not too common nowadays. So our customer support team, they are super happy to walk anyone through, a certain feature, a question they're having. They give, 15-minute tutorials of all of our tools, how to use them. If someone wants to log into their account, they'll walk them through everything.
Right. I was thinking less, I watched some of the videos online, less of a salesy video, more of a course, just how to use it, for people that are sold on it, but then they just need to get used to it. And there is a little bit of a learning curve. Absolutely. I would say the messaging is it's like a cross between text and email.
Yeah.
It's like an interesting platform. Yeah, so meaning the more, I think it just takes time to get used to it. But once you get used to it, then you have the whole chain of the messages back and forth. You have when it was read, you have all those things that all those benefits that our Family Wizard set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have all that, just get used to doing it, I guess. Or even having like a test account, like which you gave me a test account, so I got to practice on it a drop. But like a test account or like where you can just to see how things work.
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the features that I think is really cool, and for sure with this AI switch, where everyone's getting into AI, but you have a tone meter where if someone's sending a text, a harsh text, or it would tell you, hey, tone it down a drop, right?
Yes.
I don't know, but in those words, does it say tone it down a drop?
It does not say tone it down, but the message is there. So the tone meter is essentially an emotional spell check that picks up on the tone of the message and gives parents real-time feedback. So if you send a message that is harsh or humiliating or aggressive, it'll flag that message. It won't stop parents from sending it. So they can still send it, but it does just, it'll flag it as humiliating or aggressive or harsh. And then it's up to the parents whether they still want to send it or maybe they want to edit it before sending. And what I appreciate about the tone meter, and I guess, this is the new world of AI, but it's quite impressive how well it picks up on the tone, because it doesn't just flag the messages that are so outrightly harsh that, of course, a parent who's sending it knows, they're trying to insult their co-parent. It picks up on messages that a parent may send and not actually realize in the moment, in the midst of a conflict, that what they're saying is going to, upset their co-parent. So it does, the technology is quite impressive.
Does it give you alternative words to say, or just it flags it like?
It just flags it. Alternative words, though, that I think I'm going to propose that, because that could be really helpful. Sometimes it's hard, when you're in the midst of a conflict or disagreement and you're just, you want to get it out and you want to say something, and maybe, you just need a little extra support with the communication.
I want to try it out, see what it looks like. But before that, do you ever, not you per se, because you're not on the tech side of it, but does anyone ever look at these messages for their own entertainment? What got the most flagged? Like, let me look at what they wrote. Well, what is the security background, I guess?
It's funny that you say that, because we did not want this to be used against co-parents. So we didn't want it to be a thing where, the professional or, a third party could see, oh, the other parent is sending all these messages that have been flagged, by the tone meter. So that it really is only visible to parents, the tone meter. And it's, this is not meant to be used as a litigation tool. It's really just to improve, the communication. So unfortunately, we are not seeing, all these messages. I'm sure they're very interesting, but I have had, cases where a lawyer or judge or someone will say, well, I want to know if, this party is sending those flag messages, and not changing them. So how do I do that? And then we would just say to log into OFW through their pro account, through a demo account, and then just type in the message like that the parent sent.
And then you'll see
if it was flagged. Exactly.
That's interesting, because I guess it's interesting also where you might have, I wonder if this is something, again, I'm not looking to like change what it is, but I'm wondering if there's a way, because sometimes you have parents that just can't communicate because of the harshness. And, they go through, some parents like have a real traumatic ending of the marriage. And I'm wondering if there's such a thing where you could turn off that you can't send these messages. But like you're saying, I guess that's going to interfere with the co-parenting.
Yeah. You mean if there's a feature, well, we have seen it where messages are limited and phone calls are limited. So you can only receive messages or phone calls within certain hours.
Could you override that for emergency, or then you would just text each other?
Yeah. So if it was an emergency, then you would, call or text. But the point of having these, added features for consent and setting boundaries, is not only, for the high conflict, obviously for people that they truly rely on Our Family Wizard because they are being bombarded with phone calls by their co-parent at all hours of the night, and they are so anxious. So this, allows them to maintain necessary communication with their co-parent, because we can't tell them, oh, well, then don't talk to them again. They have to, because they share children with that person, but they can only receive calls, or messages within the certain hours. So that is the time that they are available. And then outside of those hours, they will not, be bothered with that. And on the other end of the spectrum, though, you can see if someone always has their consent turned off. So they're not,
Right.
Receiving any calls.
Could you send it that it should only go once the consent is left? Let's say you want to send a message at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Would that message go through after?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It'll
Cool.
go through once, that is turned on. So within the certain hours, they can receive the messages. If you send it outside of hours, it'll just wait to send until that
right.
allotted time.
Okay, I really want to get to the tone meter, but
Okay.
before, I'm just going to give the way I think of it really in general. I was speaking to someone that runs a supervised visitation center, and they got a lot of flack from people as if they're trying to hold back the children from the parent with supervised visitation. And they were sharing with me how painful it is. Like, we're not the ones trying to hold back your child. We're actually here to facilitate that you could see your child, because there are certain safety concerns, and now we need to figure out how to facilitate a visitation despite those safety concerns in a safe way. So I think that the same thing could be used both ways. We actually had someone from a mediation center outside of Rockland reached out to me once. They had a parent that couldn't see their child for 4 months during COVID because their center was not doing in person anymore. And this person did not see his child for 4 months. And then they were asking me for a referral to someone in Rockland that would do supervised visitation. And that was really like the epiphany to me, where like these organizations and Our Family Wizard also, with all the restrictions, it's really there to protect something. It's not. Now, again, to my point, my original hesitation is really, if that's not the case, the same way you would not want to use supervised visitation if that was not the case, you should not be using restrictions and turning off phone calls if there is no reason to do that. You're just you're making more difficult the situation that you have, which there's no reason for. Okay, let's get into the tone meter.
Okay, so I'm gonna type out a message. I hate you. You are the worst parent. Okay, this is a pretty bad message. So, I hate you is flagged as aggressive. You are the worst parent is flagged as upsetting. Now, let's do one that isn't as outrightly horrible. So, how about don't be late as usual? That's something that, anyone could say. Maybe they don't realize. Okay, so it flags it as humiliating, or something else. Why are you so bad at being on time? Bad at being on time. That's flagged as aggressive.
Let's try, could you please come up on time this time?
And we're adding a please to try and throw them off. Can you please be on time this time?
Yeah.
Let's see. That is not flagged.
Okay, you're allowed to write that.
For anyone
Now,
that's listening.
When is my child support payment coming?
When is my child support payment coming?
You missed the past 2 months.
You missed the past 2 months. Let's see. It is flagged, upsetting. You missed the past 2 months. So you can't, when is my child support payment coming? That's, just a regular question. But you missed the past 2 months. That gets a little accusatory.
Now, how can we switch it around to make it better?
So when is my child support payment coming? You missed the past 2 months. So you could say, instead of you missed the past 2 months, maybe just focusing on the future instead of the past. So I could use it if you could send it to me by next week. Thanks. Something like that.
How would you say if they missed the past 2 months, how would you
When is my
that?
child support payment coming? The past
2 months are still due.
2 months are still due. And now, interesting. The past 2 months are still due is flagged as concerning. And I think that really does speak to, yes, it's so frustrating. Your child support payments, they're past due. You want your co-parent to pay them, but trying to just focus on moving forward. So I really need them by this date, or, I don't want to be late this time. I think something like that, focusing on, what's going to happen in the future rather than the missed payments, because then that brings up stuff and can start a whole...
Well, possibly, meaning it could be concerning. It is concerning.
Yeah.
And I guess it could also be that you'll send it anyways because
Absolutely.
you're allowed to be concerned
Yep.
potentially if you didn't receive your child support for 2 months.
Exactly. And that's why it doesn't, limit parents from sending those messages, because if they want to send the past 2 months are still due, they are still due, then for sure send it, because as you said, that is, upsetting for both parties. And then if maybe though they see that it's flagged and they're like, okay, is that gonna be something that maybe I shouldn't send? Then they have the option to, try and change the words. No one's perfect. Sometimes we still send things that maybe, do upset the other person, but at least this is giving real-time feedback to maybe catch the things. I mean, one of those messages, I didn't realize that it would be flagged, so sometimes we don't even pick up on these things. So it is kind of helpful to have that added tool.
Right. Yeah, I think it's for sure an interesting feature. It's not stopping you from doing anything.
No.
And then you just get to know whether it is or isn't flagged.
Yeah. No, people, they're like, is there a way that we can use this technology on our iPhones? Like when I'm texting my husband or my sibling, because they'll tell me I say things that upset them and I don't even realize it half the time. So
there must be something out there.
There has
I'm sure
to.
there is.
No, I think we could all use a little bit of the tone meter at one point or another.
Right. Which it's interesting because a relationship is kind of where you make yourself vulnerable. That it kind of, any relationship kind of does break your boundaries. You're letting someone into your boundaries. And divorce is kind of separating that. And then there is some post-divorce relationship, which is you are communicating, you are co-parenting. And if possible, hopefully it's more of a collaborative than a parallel parenting where, each parent is doing what they're doing. So there is, where people could get under each other. And you could, you're making yourself vulnerable for that because you want to figure this out together versus parallel parenting where you do what you do in your house and they do what they do in their house. And then there's nothing in sync, which I think in general is seen as the worst way to co-parent.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do say something harsh,
Mhm.
and if your ex-spouse said something harsh to you, sorry about that. But again, it doesn't mean to just shut everything down.
Exactly. And it is interesting because, some people, they come to Our Family Wizard right even before the, divorce or separation, but they're about to go through with it, and they want to get ahead of the game. They're like, I want to have all the support that I can and all the, training wheels, so to speak, as I embark on this transition. So some people, they kind of use it as a preventative measure. Like, I want to keep this as amicable as possible. So I'm going to use Our Family Wizard, and take out things that could potentially cause conflict before we even get to that point. And that's something that I think is quite valuable about our platform, is that it does reach every type of family.
Right. Let me ask you about, obviously there is a cost for this platform. It's for profit. It's a platform that, costs a lot of money to maintain. But you have a fee waiver,
yes,
which I've applied for clients. But how does that work? What is it? And why do you do it?
Well, we are a mission-based company. So Our Family Wizard, we've actually been around for over 20 years. And the founder of Our Family Wizard, he, was going through a divorce himself, blended families, and he was just looking for a way. He was not high conflict, but just looking for a way to organize family life and, help families that are going through this transition. So it started, with the idea of helping families. That is our mission, helping families living separately thrive. And that means all families. So we never want it to be, cost prohibitive. So we do our fee waiver program. We've, given out over 32,000 fee waivers. This is, one of the biggest reasons I joined Our Family Wizard, is because I've seen how it helps families. We want to help as many families as possible. So anyone who is on any type of government assistance, is represented pro bono, or is a domestic violence survivor, they're entitled to a fee waiver. So they have access to all of our features. They don't have to pay a penny. As we've been in touch and you've applied for fee waivers, you just send that over to me, and I'll usually get it processed by the end of the day, because, I've seen how it helps families. We want to support everyone. Everyone should be entitled to, better communication, helping family relationships. So that is why we do, our fee waiver program. We also have our military discount, which is a buy one, get one free package for any retired or active military members.
Great. How do people that are not seeing a professional, or that just they're doing their own thing, how do they apply? What's that process? Where should they reach out to?
So we have our fee waivers if they come across Our Family Wizard and go onto our website. If perhaps, maybe they've met with someone once, like that's sometimes what we see is they've, met with a lawyer from a nonprofit 1 or 2 times, and then they'll refer them to Our Family Wizard. So there is, that part of the, professional piece, that usually it is a professional that reaches out to me to process the fee waiver. But our fee waivers are out there. We are in the court systems. We give out pamphlets all the time. So, and, we want to reach as many people as possible. So anyone can apply for a fee waiver. And even in those situations where, maybe it looks like someone has a lot of money on paper, but perhaps they don't have access to that money, or they're trying to leave a bad situation, we don't ask for tax returns or any personal information. If there's someone that could benefit from Our Family Wizard and they're struggling to pay for it, we will absolutely process a fee waiver for them.
That's wonderful. So I do think that people should take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
If that's what they're looking for, don't let the cost stop them from using this tool. Which, let me ask you, let's switch to custody plans, stuff like that. What are you seeing on that end? Because you see all the calendars,
yes,
to some extent, right? What are the popular plans that the popular schedules that you're seeing?
So some of our most popular ones are 223, 2255, and alternating weekends. However, though, we really see every single type of parenting schedule. A lot of essential workers.
Let's explain it, like just what 223 is. So the 223 is basically where you're going to have Monday, Tuesday, let's say, is with the mom. Wednesday, Thursday is with the dad. And then you have the weekend, which is back with the mom. And then Monday, Tuesday would be again with the dad.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're alternating the Monday and Tuesday. So the benefit of that schedule is that you have a shorter period of time away from the child.
Exactly.
Whereas when you have the 2255, you have a longer period of time, but every Monday and Tuesday would be with the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Every Wednesday and Thursday would be with the mom. And then you have the parents are able to always know where they're going to be for that.
Exactly. So those are our two most, popular parenting schedules that we see. Additionally, like the alternating weekends, and they both have, there is something that, kids and parents appreciate about consistency and knowing that every Monday, Tuesday is with mom and every Wednesday, Thursday with dad. And then also about, weekends shifting and getting to spend one weekend with one parent and then one weekend with the other. So
is this switching to that you see much more of kind of like equal shared parenting schedules through the app?
I mean, we definitely do. And, we see a lot of shared parenting and, all the different types of custody agreements. We also, though, see cases where there's only one parent that's utilizing the calendar and maybe the other parent, has supervised visitation, or one parent has sole, physical and legal custody. So they're the only parent that's, putting things into the calendar. And then maybe they're working towards a parenting schedule, and that's the ultimate goal. Or, we have healthcare workers or people in the airline industry, a medical profession, that they don't have the 9 to 5s, and it does change every week, their schedule. So, that's also when the calendar can be very beneficial, because every week you can, modify and make changes as needed.
Right. I know that you know Ken Newman,
yes.
Right? So one of the trainings that I've taken, when you start with the custody schedule, so I ask people, so like, how would you start a custody schedule? Like, how would you start that conversation? Then you say, okay, what would you like? What would you like? Right? They would start it that way, but really, this is something where I think once you hear it, it's so enlightening. Is just like, okay, what's your schedule? Right. And when you start with what the person's schedule is, you have people that are doctors where they're working Saturdays, and you have people where they're working on Broadway and they're closed on Mondays.
Exactly.
Right. And just knowing someone's schedule, or someone is a waiter and they'll be out till 12 o'clock at night, like, or a drummer, a singer, they're not going to be having the same schedule as, per se, someone with 9 to 5 or something like that. And then as well as what's the children's schedule? Okay, so how does this work out? The child only gets out to school at this time, but you're leaving to work at this time. And when you have that conversation, it's not anymore about what you get, what I get. It's like really trying to make it work and be practical about it. And, you ask them, like, is your schedule going to change? So how is this going to work?
Exactly. No, I adore Ken. He's my mentor. During graduate school, I did my field work with him. So I had the, privilege of spending a summer with him, and I got to observe all his mediations, and I learned so much from him. And to your point, the schedules and the parenting time, that can really be something that hinders forward movement, and parents can really get stuck on that. And understandably, because it's, when they're going to see their kids, that's so sensitive. It's so important. But, starting with the facts and like what, both parents' schedules are and the kids' schedules. And that's where I think the calendars, it's helpful for parents and it's helpful for children. And thinking about, it is It's hard for parents when they're used to spending 24/7 with their kids, and now there's this big change and they don't get to see their kids, every single day. So being able to visualize, seeing on the calendar, what dates I'm going to see my kids, what dates they're going to be with the other parent, and being able to input all those events as they come up, that can be really nice. And that is one of our features that kids can be added to as well, to totally optional, but to keep them in the loop if that would, be of benefit.
Let's switch over to like the kids in the loop, because that's something where I know Ken, just to continue on him, he's not here, but let's talk about him. I know that he sometimes, but he's a psychologist, he would bring children into mediation.
Yeah.
For me, I absolutely never would have a child be part of the mediation, because I feel like there is the parents, and the parents are going to make the decision. Whether the decision may be to ask a child, that's a parent's decision. I had one time in mediation where the issue on hand was that the father's relationship with one of the children, and the issue is stemming from a diagnosis that the child received, and the father wasn't really on board with that diagnosis, and the mother was. And we needed to work that out because the relationship between the child and the parent. So the mother was like, I would like for our child to be here. And I was like, absolutely not. You need to figure this out on a parent level. And we basically, as we went through it, there was the relationship between the father and the child, which would improve with therapy, which the child was in therapy. But that's a separate thing where he's going to work on his relationship. But we needed to figure out this diagnosis. How do we all get on board? How do we figure this out? How do we work this out together on the parent level, right? But what you're saying is where you involve the child as if like just to know their schedule, to know when soccer practices, to know which weekend they'll be by which parent, that you would do through you would give them, they could have access.
Yeah. And the access is so limited in that, really the only thing we see it being used for is the calendar. And it's just, they can, see the calendar, but that, they don't have access to expenses.
They have phone calls?
Co-parent communication. They do, because what we've seen so far with the calls is that it's most commonly being used for that virtual parenting time. And, it can be helpful because you can, maybe the child is too young for a cell phone, but they can do that call on the iPad or, so it just.
Or they could have a cell phone with just our family on it, and then you could click on it and have all those calls and everything.
Exactly. But yes, it is, we would not feel comfortable with children having access to everything. Absolutely.
Which obviously
not.
They should not have. Yeah. Children should stay out. I find that even like adult children, they could be older than me. When their parents are getting divorced, it's very, very difficult for them. It's not something that they could process.
Yeah.
Again, from my experience, I think it's really difficult on the children. And as much as possible, like the children really, you have to keep them out of any divorce proceedings. And that's a big part of like the Bill of Rights, which is on the court website. So if you want to know how to win your custody case, look at the court website, read the Bill of Rights, read the parent handbook. That's what they want you to do, right? So abide by that. But these are, Our Family Wizard is precautions to help people be able to co-parent together, but not, obviously, like you're saying, not to give the child access to this information. Absolutely. Let's move over to the payments, right? So you could request payments. Yep. Is there any fee for the processing, or it's just linked to the bank account? So
you have the option. So whoever's using Our Family Wizard, we have our expenses. So it's a way for them to track and manage the expenses. So as they're paying off, rent or dental expenses or
not rent you wouldn't have typically an agreement, but
that is true. But also, like, if you,
I'm sorry for it. Like, I just like I see so many people like, okay, that parent's gonna have to pay my rent.
Yeah,
like no, there's payments, but the add-on expenses, which you're talking about, like dental.
Yeah, like it's not. My point is that it's not just limited to like the OurFamilyWizard, annual fee. You can pay anything through OFW, and you have the option to use it just as a way to track and manage expenses, or to link it up to your bank account. So that would be OFW Pay. And then it links up to your bank account, and it's essentially like a Venmo or a Zelle. So as you're paying off expenses, you have to approve the expense, make sure it's correct. Once you approve it, it'll deduct it from your account. And it's just another way to keep everything in one place.
Do they, do you have any tracking how often people deny payments?
Yes. So there's a report for every single one of our features. So we have our expense report, and it'll show every single transaction between co-parents, which expenses have been paid, which, are open, which are closed, when the request was sent for the expense. Let's say it's been 2 weeks, still nothing. You can see when a parent has opened that expense. If they reject an expense, they have to provide a reason. And also parents can attach receipts. They don't have to, but sometimes if a parent, requests a payment, then the other parent may say back, they'll pay it, once they see a receipt.
Do you have like data on the platform, like the full like your whole client base, whatever you call, right? Users, I guess you call it?
Yes.
Whatever your users, like how often payments are denied, or...
I don't have like the average amount of times that payments are denied. It would be interesting, but it really is a way to, you can, and if you're, working with someone and they want to show you like, oh, these are all the expenses that haven't been paid, they can go to open expenses, and it puts them in a list in chronological order, or all the ones that have been paid. Or even if it's something as simple as a parent, requested money for this, and then the other parent thinks that the amount is incorrect, they can just send that back.
I guess what I'm thinking, like, where I would be very interested in, like, what the average of people paying and not paying is. I saw a few studies about like how many parents are actually paying their child support and stuff like that. As much as we have. You could be jailed for not paying child support. It could be deducted from your paycheck. I find it interesting, like, okay, so how many parents are actually paying? How many not? How many are defaulting? And that's where I think as well, like, knowing how often is regular for parents to actually deny payments. Like, if you're getting too many denials, they don't want to pay for the costume for school, but they will pay for the dental. Like, how often is normal? But I guess, that's something we won't know now.
Yes, the next podcast. Those would be very interesting statistics, though.
Do you see any trends? Do you have any like data that you would be able to share, like what you see on the back end from OurFamilyWizard, or
for the expenses,
for anything, like any of the data like that you guys are tracking, or you don't track data?
We actually, we are very secure with our privacy. So I'm not like logging into people's accounts and seeing what they're up to. We do have a team that does that, but we try and have a little bit of separation.
So you don't publish, but do you publish any of the data that you find, or?
We have a few case studies out so that, with everyone's consent, but we are, we certainly don't sell any data. We're not partnered with, anyone that is, taking our clients' email, stuff like that. We take it very seriously.
Right. No, meaning what I'm thinking, like, you have 1 million users, right? So if we knew trends that are happening, obviously with, the one factor, which is that these are people that signed up for OurFamilyWizard. So that would be what's the right word? That's the sample size, right? That's the sample, the selection bias, right? But with that in mind, like, I would be so interested in like, what trends do you see? What actually happens? Like, how does that, what do people do? Like, I get a lot of times, like, in mediation, people ask me, okay, so tell me some common things that people would do. Like they just don't know and they would want to know. And I'm wondering like what is the standard, but we don't have that data. So
no, that's would be interesting. I mean, one thing that we do have, I think, because our calls is our most recent feature, so we're kind of monitoring that more closely, is the average call between parent and child is 5 minutes twice a week. So that, you know, is included in our subscription packages. And it's just good to know because, you know, these calls between a parent and a child, they're not typically going to be 45 minutes long, especially if it's a young, you know, kid. So
it's very interesting because in like agreements, people write a lot of times the number 15 minutes, but that's very interesting. So the average time is 5 minutes twice a week. So it's not every day. It's not every, right. It's twice a week, 5 minutes. That's interesting. Yeah. And it's both parents back and forth, or it's one parent generally?
It's usually one parent with the child, and then
the other parent is not calling because
they're with the child.
Yeah. Very interesting. It's taking me time to process, and I guess that's why you have you have 2 plans, right?
Yes.
So one plan comes with like an hour, 45 minutes of call time?
So we have our essentials package, which each parent gets a 45-minute phone call per month. And what we're seeing is that is enough time because, you know, that those 45 minutes can be spread out through the month, and the average call time is, you know, 2 5-minute calls. We do, though, have our premium package. If there's a family that's really utilizing the call feature, they're doing it every day, then that would be unlimited calls.
It's like, you know, when you take out a car lease or something and it has like the 10,000, 12,000 miles and you're like, wait, is that going to be enough? But then you drive and you're like, oh yeah, that is what I'm using, right? But I guess the 45 minutes is the same idea. What other features does the, what do you call it?
So we have our essentials and our premium package.
The premium package. And what else does it offer?
So the only 2 differences are the unlimited phone calls and OFW pay. So the essentials package, you can do, I believe it's up to 8 payments with OFW pay, and then premium is unlimited. So if a family is going to be, you know, doing all of their expenses through OFW, then those 8 payments may not be enough. They may want unlimited.
And what's if one parent has the premium and one parent not?
Yes. So we see that a lot. And then, you know, that parent, what we're seeing is, because we just came out with our max package, which is the recordings, the transcripts. So sometimes one parent will have those recordings and then the other parent is on the essentials package. So the parent with the premium, you know, the highest package, they can get all the transcripts, and then the other parent won't have access to those transcripts, but they can still see them, I believe. So it's like,
meaning you wouldn't be able to record.
On their side, they couldn't record, but they don't need to because they would likely only need one recording.
So then they must get the recording.
One of them would have to.
Well, meaning let's just call it the unsafe parent, right? So the unsafe parent would have the max package so that their calls are transcribed, and then the other parent that doesn't have that max package, they would get they must get the transcription.
So they can still be recorded, both consent, because once you call, it says if you go forward with this call, you're being recorded. And then so the other parent with the premium package would have access to the transcriptions. The other parent would not, but it would still be recorded.
So so then really if there's one parent, again, the unsafe parent, if the, let's just say, safe parent wants that recording, they would need to also have a max package.
If they want access. But if maybe it's less contentious and they just need it for another reason, then it could work in that one parent has the recording and they just, you know, submit that to whoever they're working with.
Right. I'll be the salesman now. Just get the max package. You know, if that's what you're doing, if you're recording it, you should get the recording. Don't have it be transferred back and forth. Let's move over to the journal, because I think it's a very interesting feature. I think it's the more pleasant feature, I guess.
Agreed.
Right? So you have over there where you could document moments, right? So that's uploading photos and stuff like that. And then you also have where you could write down shoe sizes and stuff, like notes. And what else is in that?
So our journal feature is comprised of moments and check-ins. And as you were saying, moments, it's kind of a way to encourage the positive communication between co-parents, showing, you know, birthday parties, field trips, any happy memories. A parent can write a caption, and it doesn't open the dialogue, which sometimes can be helpful. Like, you get to share the experience with the co-parent and not have to engage in a back and forth. I've also seen it for if they're very young children, you know, babies, feeding schedules, if a child is sick, documenting the amount of wake-ups during the night, their symptoms. And it doesn't open up a back and forth, but it's just keeping that other parent in the loop.
Is there any tone meter over there?
There is. We have our tone meter there. So
I had one time, someone showed this to me. There was one of the parents, they sent food along for the baby. And then the other parent sent back a picture of the child's diaper and said, "It looks like your food."
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
that
tone
would be
meter
tone
is
meter,
there.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me some, like,
Oh,
the
and
best...
then back, can I go back
Sure.
to the journal? So the journal also, we've seen it, people don't have to share their journal. So they could also treat it as, you know, just a personal record keeping of what they're experiencing, what they're going through, their side of it, and they don't have to share it with their co-parent. So I've seen things, you know, if it's very difficult times, a parent may want to keep track of their experience of it. Or if, let's say, you know, there's a reoccurring issue, like a parent keeps forgetting the jacket during the drop-offs or keeps forgetting like their school supplies, then that could be something that a parent may want to write in the journal, not share it with the co-parent, not engage in a back and forth, but just to have for their personal, you know, record, so that if they are going back, then they can see, okay, this is what happened.
Does it go to their professional?
So they have the option, if they're working with a professional, lawyer, therapist, mediator, they can share it exclusively with their professional. You know, this can be very helpful with domestic violence survivors. I've seen the journal feature, you know, be used to document abuse and kids that are coming home with bruises, and they share that with their professional. And that is, you know, that is of utmost importance that they have someone that they trust that knows what's going on, and that's, you know, able to see the pictures and the captions and all of that.
So I would caution, because I know, like, from speaking with professionals, I think most professionals are not going to look at the OFW on a constant basis, for sure, not in each client or anything like that. So if there is really domestic violence concern that they feel needs to be addressed, not just tracked, then they probably should address it some other mode of communication other than just uploading it to the doc.
Absolutely. And it would be used as an additional, you know, because unfortunately, it's like if there is something where you do have to return to court, whether it is domestic violence or expenses that, you know, child support's not being paid, you do have to, you know, show proof. And to have that documentation, not as the only method of dealing with it, but just as an additional resource, can be very helpful.
And does the professional see, like, someone uploaded pictures of Disney? The professional is going to see their pictures? If
it's connected. So if they choose to share it. So I could, you know, choose to share it just with my co-parent. I could choose to share it with a professional. I could share it with both of them, or share it with nobody.
It's very interesting. So, meaning, I guess I misunderstood a little bit. Meaning, even the messaging, I'm guessing, meaning I don't use this feature, so I would not track it. And if anyone asks me, don't add me to your OFW account. I'm not interested in that. Now, obviously, that comes from being a mediator in very peaceful divorces versus a lawyer or someone that's dealing with more hostile situations where maybe it does make sense. I don't feel for my clientele it makes sense. But in the messaging, you would have to allow, you could have your messages back and forth between the exes, but you wouldn't, unless you allow the professional to see it, they would not see that tracking.
Exactly. So only if, a professional has a pro account and then they have to link up to the client that's using it, and then the client would have to consent. And then if they consent, then the professional can see the messages, the calendar, the expense log, everything. And it's just a way to not have to rely on, the parents to supply screenshots of messages and expenses and, the calendar. It's just kind of a bird's eye view.
Right, which I guess it doesn't make a difference the pro account or not, because they could download it, but they have a format how to download it efficiently where all the messages are coming together. That I did hear from like professionals that I spoke to about it, where they're like, yeah, I like it because I'm not getting screenshots, of messages and whatnot, and then have to figure out which one continues to what.
Exactly.
Tell me some of the best feedback you get, inspirational stories of people using OFW.
Well, one story that I really like is, it was the first trip since the divorce, and dad was taking the kids away for July 4th weekend, and someone forgot their swimsuit. And he used our storage center. So he was able to go into the storage center and find the kid's bathing suit. And this seems like a very minor story, but it's actually not, because this is a way to set parents up for success. So instead of having to reach out and be like, oh, I forgot the kid's swimsuit, and then maybe that engages in a back and forth. Why'd you forget it? You always forget things. There was no need for that. They were able just to go to, our storage center, find the kid's swimsuit, and then the rest of the trip went on, and like without a hitch. So it's
what did they find in the storage center?
So in the storage center,
size?
Yeah. So everything we tell parents to upload, because, sizes, shoe sizes, doctors, insurance, babysitters, a friend's mom's phone number, literally everything under the sun, because this is setting up parents and kids for success. Because, I've also heard stories where there was an emergency and someone had to go to the ER and a parent couldn't get a hold, of the co-parent. And instead of being frantic and, not getting the information that they needed, they were able to log on, see everything, see the allergies, see the, insurance card. So it really, it makes parents feel safe, because already, if they're not physically with their kids, that can cause some anxiety. So knowing, God forbid, something happens, there's an emergency, my co-parent can't get in touch with me, they have everything that they need, everything that is important, to our children is in one place that we can both access. So it's stories like that. It's, there's also been when kids are really young, and that can be difficult, the transition of having both parents in the same home and then one parent moves out, and not knowing when they're going to see that other parent. And there was a dad that, printed out a big version, like a, gigantic size of the calendar, and he put it in his kid's room. And, this was when she gets to be with me, and this is when she gets to be with mom. And look, it's not that, there's not that much time in between. And it honestly made me think of when I went to sleepaway camp. And that's how I got through my first summer at camp, was, looking at the calendar, and this is the amount of days until I get home. So it's those, stories that maybe they don't sound big, but it's about like setting up parents and kids for success, having somewhere that they can access any important information, keeping kids feeling safe. And as I stated in the beginning, that we are becoming more accepting of co-parenting, and you can, listen on TV or a podcast. Celebrities are talking about it now. It's no longer this taboo thing, divorce, and it doesn't need to be that, a traumatic moment. So it's like, how can we support these families so that it's a childhood that's not centered around divorce, but a divorce that's centered around the children? Like, they are the focal point.
It's powerful stories, but it really is those little things that could make such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Just if the parent is not responding and you're going to the beach and the parent's not letting you know, and you're like, wait, what's the size? What is the size?
Yep.
And it's difficult, if let's say a father with his daughter to go get her a bathing suit, he might not be able to, go into the dressing room or help her try it on, because it's just not, it can't work that way. So you have to know the size and just, and you don't have as much flexibility when you're out there on your own.
Exactly. And these are like, these are the things that we hear from parents, the things that they worry about is, maybe it sounds minor to other, but it's not. It's the, will my kid have everything packed in the suitcase for the trip? And what if she needs something, or what if she needs to call me, or, those things. And this really does act as like a supportive tool for that.
Let's wrap up over here. Any final thoughts that you have on that you want to share about OFW?
Well, I really appreciate you giving the opportunity to get to know me a little bit more. I'm so happy, to be with a company like OFW, and that is so mission-based and that really lives up to their mission. So anyone that's listening, if they ever have questions about OFW, if they could benefit from a fee waiver, if they want to learn more, to please reach out to me, to please reach out to someone on our team, because, I do believe in the work that we do. This is my passion, and I just love, talking about it.
Thank you so much for coming. And again, I was a recruit. I don't use OFW for all my clients, but I think that it's a tool to have in your toolbox to be able to use for the right client. And I've seen with several clients since where they were really able to take advantage of these tools, and where it really changed their co-parenting dynamic by implementing these tools. And it could be with a fee waiver, so it doesn't even have to cost them anything to do it. And OFW is very lucky to have you on their team.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give the exit bio, I guess, a drop. Yes. Something that not everyone knows is that you're very passionate about conflict resolution and figuring out family systems that could work. You're a graduate of Columbia, right? Mm-hmm. For the negotiation and conflict resolution program. So I think, having that background and that focus and being able to look at what these families need and what could be done and implemented is a great thing to have. And whether it's someone going with OFW or not, I hope what they would take out of this podcast is really just to think about different ways that you could improve your communication and getting along with each other. It may be a Dropbox that you're sharing. It may be anything. But just know that there's support out there for people that are looking to help people in this situation, and anything that you could do to make your situation better and really be innovative. And sometimes it's not the greatest innovation. It's just having one place where documents are stored, where you're sharing pictures, where having a calendar, not the most innovative thing. That's been around, right? Obviously, OFW is very innovative in what they're adding on to it. But I think even just these basic features that people could use and think about, I hope that's something that, something struck people throughout this conversation, which I'm sure anyone that listened to it, there will be things that struck them that, hey, we could do that. That's smart. So thank you for coming, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.